So recently I bought the world's cheapest keyboard on Amazon. It was like $26 and I got the keyboard and a mouse. It's a mechanical keyboard with blue switches and I've been thinking, wonder if I could make it any better. So right now the keyboard sounds like this. It's honestly terrible. It's clicky, clacky, springy. The stabilizers suck and there's not much I can do because it's a soldered in PCB. So let's see what mods we can actually do and hopefully it sounds better. So to start, I removed all these keycaps here and then I went ahead and unscrewed everything on the board. I took out all the screws. There was a couple star screws actually, which is weird for this keyboard, and then a bunch of little Phillips head screws. And on these cheap keyboards, unplugging the USB cable seems to be an incredible pain in the ass. Like, I don't understand why it's stuck in there the way it is. I don't know if it's just crammed in there from the factory, but yeah. This board is also it's like hollow. It's super hollow. So the first thing I thought of doing was doing a tape mod on the back of the PCB. And rather than just using blue painter's tape like everybody does, I used blue electrical tape because I'm cool and different. So I think it gives a little bit of a different sound too. It's more rubbery. I think it's more dampening, honestly, at the end of the day. So I did 2 full layers of this electrical tape. I didn't want to do too much and have the board not go back into the case. And I think 2 layers was plenty because when I squished it into the actual case, it suction cupped around the standoffs in the case and almost made it like a rubber dampener when I put it in there. So who knows? I think it helped a lot. Definitely took out a lot of the vibrations of the case. So let's put it back together now, and we're gonna squish it back into this case here. And it definitely requires a lot of force to kind of squish it back onto the plastic standoffs. Make sure if you're doing this, you cut holes in the tape, because if you don't, you'll probably break one of the standoffs trying to squish it back in there. So definitely make sure you take the time to cut holes in the tape. That way you can line it back up with the case. All right, so now that we've done our tape mod, our electrical tape mod, we're going to go ahead and reinstall all these screws here and make sure that the keyboard goes back together and that there's not any ginormous gaps between the case and the top plate, which there aren't, so we're in good shape. I can go ahead and move on to the next step, which is going to be isolating the spacebar, because there's just a giant gap in this spacebar. There's literally no padding in there, so it's just a giant hollow sound machine. So I took they're furniture pads you put on the bottom of furniture, and I had some square ones, and luckily they were the exact length I needed, so I just had to trim them small enough to fit in there, stuck them in place, and I think it worked fantastically. I'm going to do this on all my keyboards if they don't have the spacebar dampener. Next thing I did was went ahead and lubed up the stabilizers on this keyboard. Since they're soldered in, I was not going to take these switches out and desolder all of them. I just don't think it's worth it. So I just crammed a bunch of Krytox 205 in the switch, and then I lubed up the housing the best I could from the outside. Or, I don't know. I feel like you could do a pretty good job of lubing this way. I don't think you need to take the damn switches apart. You could do, I'd say, 95% of the work just like this, and you don't have to take them out. If you have hot swappable switches, definitely just take them out because it's so much easier. You don't have to get lube all over your keyboard. But for the switches, since these are clicky blues, I'm just going to soak them in super lube. I'm going to inject some lube into these switches. So I shot like 5 or 6 drops on each side, basically filled it full with lube to kind of smooth it out. Anyway, let's see how this keyboard sounds after all that modification we did to it. Took me about an hour to do all this stuff, so let's see if it was worth it. So far so good. I think it sounds pretty smooth, pretty thocky, I'd say. I think this keyboard thocks now. The only thing that's driving me absolutely crazy is this spacebar. It sounds like shit. So let's see if we can fix it. Probably not. It's just the stabilizer. It's just the stabilizers, I think. So We might be stuck with this crappy sounding spacebar, but other than that, I think these switches sound pretty good. I mean, you do have to keep in mind, this is what the switches sounded like before, and this is what they sound like now. So all in all, I had a lot of fun doing this mod to my keyboard. I think it was definitely worth it. It made the keyboard sound better, and the whole entire typing experience has just improved greatly. So let me know down in the comments, will you be doing this to your shitty keyboard?